Everyone knows who killed Goliath: the shepherd boy, the sling, the single stone, David. It might be the most famous story in the Old Testament. So here is a sentence that should not exist. 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 19. Elhanan the Bethlehemite killed Goliath the Gittite. Not David, Elhanan, a name you've probably never heard. Same giant, Goliath the Gittite, the man with the spear like a weaver's beam, but a completely different killer. And it gets stranger because there's a parallel verse, 1 Chronicles 20, verse 5, that tells the same event differently. It says Elhanan killed Lahmi, the brother of Goliath. So now you have three options on the table, and they can't all be right. David killed Goliath, or Elhanan killed Goliath, or Elhanan killed Goliath's brother. One Bible, three answers. The solution to this is not a cover-up, and it's not a contradiction you have to just live with. The solution is sitting in the Hebrew letters, and it's one of the clearest windows in the entire Bible into how this book was actually copied. Welcome back to Scripture Underground. Today we're back underneath the manuscripts, taking what looks like a flat contradiction and watching it dissolve, letter by letter, into something far more interesting. Hit subscribe and let's go. First, let's be honest about how real the problem is, because some people's instinct is to pretend it isn't there. It's there. Look at the two verses together. These are clearly the same sentence, same Elhanan, same Gittite, same spear like a weaver's beam, word for word. They are two copies of one event. But in one, Elhanan kills Goliath. In the other, Elhanan kills Lahmi, the brother of Goliath. And both of those are sitting in the same Bible as 1 Samuel 17, where David kills Goliath in front of an entire army. And before anyone says, maybe there were two Goliaths, or maybe Elhanan is just another name for David, the text itself rules that out. Elhanan shows up in a separate list of David's mighty warriors in 2 Samuel 23. He's his own man, fighting in his own battle years later when David is already king. So Elhanan is not David. These really are different people, and the verses really do say different things. So something happened between the original text and the copies we have, and the beauty of this case is that we can almost watch it happen. To see it, you have to picture how these texts were copied, by hand for centuries, by scribes working from older copies. And ancient Hebrew makes this harder than you'd think. The oldest Hebrew was written with consonants only, no written vowels. Words that mean totally different things could be separated by a single letter, or by nothing more than how you grouped the consonants. A tired scribe copying column after column by lamplight could misread one letter, drop one short word, or let his eye skip from one place to a similar-looking place a few words over. Scholars who study this have names for the specific ways it goes wrong, because the same kinds of mistakes show up again and again across thousands of manuscripts. And two of those exact, well-documented mistakes are almost certainly what happened here. Let me show you both. Here's the first one, and it's the heart of the whole puzzle. In Chronicles, the word in this slot is laḥmî, read as a name, Lahmi. In Samuel, the word in the very same slot is laḥmî, the Bethlehemite. Look at how close those are. Lahmi, laḥmî. They share almost every consonant. In an unpointed Hebrew text, the difference between Lahmi, the giant's name, and the Bethlehemite, the description of Elhanan, is a hair's breadth, a question of where a word break falls and whether one short piece is read as a name or as part of a place title. And here's the second piece. In Hebrew, there's a tiny word, ऽeth, that has two completely different jobs. Most of the time, it's just a grammatical marker that flags the direct object of a sentence. But spelled almost identically, it can also be part of the word for brother. So picture it. The original sentence very likely said, Elhanan killed Lahmi, the brother of Goliath. A scribe copying Samuel mishandles that little ऽeth, reads brother of as the grammatical marker instead, and the words the brother of silently fall out of the sentence. Now the sentence reads, Elhanan killed Goliath. The giant's brother has vanished, and Elhanan has been handed Goliath's kill by accident. That's it. That's the whole contradiction. Two short look-alike words, a name that blurs into a place title, and a brother of that blurs into a grammar marker, and David's victory appears to get reassigned to a stranger. And there's a third clue that this is exactly what happened, a bonus error that gives the game away. Look back at the description of the spear, like a weaver's beam. The Hebrew word for weavers is ʻōrəgîm, and in the Samuel verse that word appears to have gotten duplicated. It shows up where it shouldn't, jammed into Elhanan's father's name, turning it into the odd, clunky Yare ʻōrəgîm. Scholars call this kind of slip homoioteleuton, when a scribe's eye jumps between two words that end the same way and accidentally copies one of them twice. So in the Samuel verse, you don't have one clean copy. You have fingerprints, a duplicated weaver's, a blurred name, a dropped brother of. This isn't a guess that a scribe slipped. The slips left marks. Now I have to slow down because there are two different ways to tell this story, and only one of them is honest. The popular version, the one you'll hear in a lot of churches, goes, 1 Chronicles preserves the original, 2 Samuel suffered a copying error, so just read Samuel in light of Chronicles. David killed Goliath, contradiction solved, everyone go home. And that's the conclusion the King James translators reached centuries ago. They actually inserted the words, the brother of, into 2 Samuel 21:19 to harmonize it, words that aren't in the Hebrew they were translating. Your modern Bible may footnote this. The ESV note at that verse literally says, contrast 1 Chronicles 25, which may preserve the original reading. Here's where I have to be straight with you. That conclusion is reasonable and probably right, but it is not as clean as the confident version makes it sound, and pretending otherwise is the exact thing this channel exists not to do. The careful textual scholars, the ones who do this for a living, mostly think the situation is messier than Samuel broke, Chronicles is fine. They think both verses likely contain small copying errors, and that we're reconstructing the original by triangulating between two imperfect copies. The Dead Sea Scrolls, which sometimes rescue us in cases like this, happen to have a gap right at this verse, so they can't settle it. And there's a minority of serious scholars who push further. They argue the oldest tradition may actually have credited the giant slaying to Elhanan, and that the towering David and Goliath story we all know grew up around it later. That's not the majority view, and I'm not endorsing it, but you should know it exists, held by people who know these texts cold, because the honest answer here is, we are reconstructing, not reading a clean original. So what can we actually say with confidence? This. The two verses describe one event, Elhanan, later in David's reign, killing a giant connected to Goliath. The most likely reconstruction is that he killed Goliath's brother, and a chain of small, identifiable copying slips in 2 Samuel made it read as Goliath. David's victory in 1 Samuel 17 stands untouched, but the precise wiring of how the error happened is a reconstruction, a strong one with the scribal fingerprints to back it, not a closed case. Here's why this matters, and it's the opposite of what a skeptic might expect. A verse like this gets quoted as a Bible contradiction, proof the book is unreliable. But watch what actually happened when we went underneath it. We didn't have to choose between blind faith and gotcha. We had two copies of the same sentence, preserved side by side in the same Bible, close enough that we can lay them next to each other and literally see where a scribe's hand slipped. The error didn't get hidden, it got kept, in plain view in two versions for 3,000 years, so that anyone willing to look at the letters can reconstruct what happened. That's not a book covering its tracks. That's a book that preserved its own working copies, slips and all, and is honest enough to footnote the problem in your own translation. The contradiction people point to is actually the evidence. It's how we can do the reconstruction at all. David killed Goliath. Elhanan, years later, killed a giant, most likely Goliath's brother. And a few blurred Hebrew letters in between have given us one of the best lessons in the whole Bible on how this text was carried across the centuries. Not perfectly by every scribe, but faithfully enough, in enough copies, that the truth is still recoverable from the letters themselves. One famous giant, two copies of one sentence, a handful of look-alike letters, and a contradiction that turns out to be the very thing that lets us find the original. So here's your assignment for the comments. Open 2 Samuel 21:19 in your own Bible and tell me what it does. Does it say Elhanan killed Goliath? Does it slip in the brother of? Does it give you a footnote pointing to 1 Chronicles? Different translations handle this differently, and I want to know what yours does. If this opened the manuscripts up for you, hit like, subscribe. There's a whole series of these textual puzzles coming, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time.